All right. Hello, everyone. We are back for the final section of the paper about peer review. So, the discussion section is generally here to basically place the importance of the results in a greater context. So, previously, we had learned that teaching college students how to peer review actually helps them improve their skills, and so they were able to better understand a research paper, and they felt like they belonged more in the scientific community. And so the discussion section will basically explain why it's important that college students are involved in the scientific process. So let's jump right into it. This study provides evidence that one aspect of disciplinary literacy, peer review manuscripts, can be developed and strengthened by a curriculum that offers explicit instruction, iterative practice, and opportunities to authentically participate in a community of practice. So basically, they're just restating that the peer review curriculum helped improve their disciplinary literacy, or basically research skills. And then it also helped them participate in the community of practice, so they felt like they belonged in the scientific community. So improvements in disciplinary literacy and in students' perceptions of literacy, scientific identity, and belonging in STEM were observed as a result of both the standalone peer review course, the full week 14-week curriculum, and a short peer review module embedded into a disciplinary course. So basically, there were improvements in their research skills and their sense of belonging when they did the 14-week course and when it was just a single one-time event. So both full course and short module. So this suggests that instructors who are not able to offer a full course on peer review might still consider incorporating a module into pre-existing disciplinary courses as a way to intentionally develop students' disciplinary literacy. So basically, if you're a busy college professor who has your whole curriculum planned out for the semester, and you're not sure if you can suddenly shove in peer review material, then you can still try and shove in just one lesson on peer review, and that's much more doable for a lot of professors than trying to implement a 14-week curriculum. So explicit instruction can come in the form of class lessons, as was done in the full curriculum, or written granular guiding questions, as was done in the embedded module. So iterative practice is critical for success. The group synthesis after independent reviews was particularly beneficial for improving peer review quality, reinforcing why this approach is used in journal peer review when editors synthesize reviews from independent reviewers. So iterative basically means it builds upon itself. So first, students would peer review the article and give feedback by themselves, and then finally they would come together as a group and put it all together into one review. So that's iterating on the work that they did before. So iterative means to build upon itself. Group work also provides students an opportunity to participate in an academic community of practice. Using these pedagogies to foster students' disciplinary literacy also has interrelated effects on improving students' sense of belonging in STEM and identity as a scientist. So, ignoring the big word pedagogy basically is saying that by improving the students' skills in science and giving them more confidence in their ability to analyze a research article, it increased their sense of belonging in the scientific community. So there was twofold effects. So foster their disciplinary literacy, improve their sense of belonging. As students transition from novices to experts in their disciplinary literacy skills, it causes them to perceive themselves as valuable members of the academic and professional communities of practice, which may explain why these self-beliefs are predictors of persistence in STEM careers, especially for minoritized students. A limitation of our study, so now they're moving on to limitations after they discuss the general significance. Oh, I guess I skipped over this. So the reason why they say that peer review is very important for undergraduate college students is because it leads to a persistence in STEM careers when they believe they belong in the scientific community. Okay, now moving on to limitations. A limitation of our study is that peer reviews are a subjective assessment of a manuscript, and so evaluations of a peer review are in turn a subjective assessment of a subjective assessment, making it challenging to evaluate peer reviews in a standardized way. That's kind of confusing. A subjective assessment of a subjective assessment. Oh, I see. So basically, a peer review is an opinion by the student and or researcher. And so an opinion is not an objective fact. So peer reviews are basically an opinion, and then you're evaluating the opinion, and so you're giving an opinion on the opinion. That's what it means there. And so when you're evaluating the quality of peer reviews, it's hard to measure the quality of an opinion, basically. This is further complicated where different manuscripts are being evaluated, as the quality of the peer review may well depend on how much or little there is to critique in a manuscript. So some manuscripts, or basically some rough drafts of research articles, are better than others, right? So in the first place, a manuscript is usually a first or second rough draft for a researcher, and so if it's a first draft, then maybe the researcher hasn't actually put too much editing into it yet, and so it might not be as good quality as if they had reviewed it more. So there's also varying quality in manuscripts as well, and so that makes it hard to evaluate the quality of any feedback you give. And that is just hard to evaluate quality of feedback. Evaluate quality of feedback because manuscripts also vary in quality. So we endeavored, basically, we tried to make up for this limitation by using 3 unique evaluation tools, which are some of the few that are publicly available and allow quantification of some criteria, though there is variability between tools. So basically they use 3 different tools which are generally agreed to be standard. None of the tools evaluate the sophistication of the critiques, which is surface level comments versus deep scientific analysis. So that is one thing to note. We can't tell if the critique was surface level or a deep scientific analysis using the tools they used, which we find to be a major limitation yet also difficult to quantify. For example, with the particular preprint chosen for the first peer review event in course 2, students had a tendency to request the entire experiment be repeated because of the small sample size, but did not state or justify what a suitable expectation for the size would be. Therefore, one future direction of this work is to develop clearer standards for evaluation of peer review, and by extension, a rubric for peer review learning outcomes. So basically, they need a better rubric for how to judge if the quality of their review is actually improved by taking the course. So a better rubric. All 3 peer review quality assessments include items to evaluate the tone of the review, defining a quality review as having a constructive, respectful tone that balances strengths with weaknesses. So this criterion about tone speaks to the trend toward overly critical or harsh reviews from professional scientists. Interestingly, students' reviews were never rude or insulting. They tended to be written in clear and logical words and tended to point out strengths of the works with high frequency, and so consistently scored high marks for these criteria on all 3 assessment tools. Students' early career stage and/or gender may have contributed to the civility of their reviews, as both of these identities are socialized to use respectful tone, especially when delivering criticisms. So basically, because students are students and not professionals, they tend to be more careful with how they give feedback and critique, since they know they are critiquing like a professional researcher, so they want to be a bit more respectful. Now, earlier, it said this criterion about tone speaks to the general trend toward overly critical or harsh reviews from professional scientists. So I guess what it's trying to say is there's a trend in the professional scientific community that the overall tone of feedback is getting a little bit more harsh or a little bit more critical than usual. And so I guess students are more polite in that sense. Okay. Our sample of students at Mount Holyoke, an institution serving women and minoritized genders, may be biased in this regard. Okay. So at Mount Holyoke, most of them are women and minoritized genders. So it's possible that because of the experiences of the social expectations of what people have about women and minorities is that they're trying to be more respectful in a field that they might feel like they might not necessarily belong. So that's why their critique may have been more overall respectful and balanced. In ongoing work, we are investigating these demographics, correlations, and curricular outcomes using larger sample sizes in other institutional contexts, i.e. at a large land-grant university or a 2-year community college. So regardless, these data suggest that if a balanced approach to reviewing is reinforced at early career stages, then it might be better retained in the reviews of professional scientists. So if we teach them how to give good feedback that's both balanced and respectful in the beginning, maybe in the future when they become professional scientists, they will continue to give feedback that is balanced and respectful. Our data suggests that belonging in a community of practice is dependent on the interplay among disciplinary practices, disciplinary discourses, and disciplinary identity. It's a lot of disciplinary. Okay. So it's the interplay between practices, discourse, and identity. So the sense of belonging is affected by your skills, who you talk to, so that's discourse, and your current identity. Who knew? Okay. Belonging is itself composed of 2 parts, a sense of belonging in the student's academic setting, i.e. in the classroom, in combination with a sense of belonging to the community of scientists, so the greater scientific community with like professional researchers. So the sense of classroom belonging appears to be important in creating a safe space for students to then both develop their literacy, aka their skills, and explore their identity as scientists and place in the wider scientific community. So the classroom should be a safe space. Classroom is creating a safe space. Interaction with others, peers, scientists, and professionals then supports the development of the sense of belonging. So interaction with others increases sense of belonging. So students have a clear understanding of what they are required to do to succeed academically, but what professional success looks like and how they can achieve it might be less clear. So, addressing in an academic context how to move from novice to expert in an authentic professional practice may be an important foundation in building professional scientific identity. So basically, in the academic context, So teaching students in school how to become an expert, a real expert professional scientist, teaches them how, or no, increases their belief in their scientific identity, I guess. So basically, if you teach them how to become a real expert professional scientist in school, then it makes them feel more like scientists. This may have implications for retention in academia. Moving instruction on how to be a practicing scientist away from later career stages and into earlier academic settings may allow earlier establishment of belonging in the scientific community. Other work has shown that a strong science identity predicts higher grades, with manipulation of belonging in college being able to affect the relationship between science identity and academic performance. So I have a personal comment on this. I'm currently a sophomore in college, and one thing I find that it's crazy is that for the first 2 years of college, you're mostly learning like basic classes like math, history, government, science, and all your general classes. Basically, it's like high school but harder, and you don't really get into your specific major classes until your junior or senior year. And so you're spending a lot of time not really learning about your own major. And then once you finally graduate college, you have to go and find either a graduate program or a master's program that provides more classes specific about your major. So the first college, basically your undergraduate college, is already 4 years long. So you have to wait 4 more years before you really get in-depth knowledge about the major you want. And so that is a really long time to wait before you actually move into your career's instruction. So what it's trying to say here is that if you start teaching college students or undergraduate college students about how to become a scientist right when they get into college, then they're more confident about staying in the scientific community. Okay, so moving away from later career stages and into earlier academic settings. So, our proposition is supported by prior research on the CREATE method for teaching science, which uses published articles, not preprints though, to educate students. So CREATE students made comments about the importance of personal connections with scientists, which in the regional CREATE work was due to the opportunity for students either to interact with the authors of the published papers that they read or view materials and footage of a prior group's interaction. So I guess this CREATE group was a previous study that they did, or not this group, but a different experiment that's trying to accomplish something similar. So these students also both developed literacy about the practices of a community of practice and expressed an increased interest in becoming scientists, identifying with the community of practice. So similarly, our intervention used primary literature, which is basically a research article, and introduced students to different scientists and practitioners. As in the CREATE method, we see that when students are given the opportunity to engage with professionals, students' sense of belonging in the community of practice is enhanced, moving them further toward the expert identity. So when students get to interact with current professional scientists, it helps them feel like they belong in the scientific community, and it makes them feel more like scientists themselves. Okay, Students also related their science identity to their personal and professional identities, as they described how they communicated about science with friends, family members, classmates, and other scientists. Given the importance of belonging in shaping students' science identity and possible persistence in STEM, one implication of this work is an appreciation of the need for undergraduate biology instructors to understand the nuances between different levels of belonging. So, the sense of belonging is just not a straight up, oh, you just talk to a scientist and you'll feel like you belong. There's more nuance there. And so that is what this paper is encouraging, is that if you are a professor or an instructor for undergraduate biology students, you want to better understand how you can encourage a student's sense of belonging in the scientific community. And it is not just as simple as introducing to them some professional scientists. So, belonging in academic, science, and professional communities of practices can all contribute to development of literacy and identity, which then can contribute to a sense of belonging. So we got contribute to a development of literacy and identity, so that's one benefit. More skills, and they better feel like scientists, and they have a sense of belonging, so that's two. Okay. Underlining is hard. We suggest that undergraduate instruction, or basically teaching undergraduates, especially on literacy development, could potentially be more effective if greater attention is focused on professional belonging. By attending to only one context, instructors may be missing an opportunity for students to identify their own professional goals and whether they believe they can achieve them. We posit that undergraduate instructors should design curriculum that allow students to reflect on their identities and sense of belonging in both the classroom as well as in the broader science community of practice. So this last paragraph encourages professors who teach undergraduate college students to both teach them how to analyze research articles, that's what literacy development means, but also focus on their sense of belonging as a professional scientist. So it mentions that if you only focus on teaching them how to peer review a research article and analyze research without necessarily telling them why it's important for the greater scientific community, then you might be missing out on on the benefits of encouraging students to feel and believe like they are scientists. So this is basically the call to action. Call to action, teach undergraduate college students how to analyze research articles, basically peer review, and also encourage their scientific identity, encourage their involvement in the greater scientific community, and grow their sense of belonging as scientists. Okay. Awesome. So, it looks like, to summarize, teaching undergraduate college students how to analyze research articles, basically peer review, and first of all, improved their skills in peer review, and it also made them feel more like scientists and that they belong in the scientific community. And so both of these effects are important for retaining college students to finish their STEM degree and to continue on to become professional scientists. All right, so there is one last section, acknowledgements. So generally, for any research paper, the acknowledgement section is just to give thanks to anyone who has greatly contributed to writing the research paper or the project, and also in this case they're mentioning where the funding came from. So here it says, "We are grateful to the National Science Foundation for funding this work through an Improving Undergraduate Science Education Award from the Division of Undergraduate Education. Award, Collaborative Research, Developing Biology undergraduate, scientific literacy, and identity through peer review of scientific manuscripts." That's the title of the paper. So portions of that text are adapted here. Our deepest gratitude goes to all of the students who participated in this curriculum and to the colleagues who contributed to it, including Jessica Polka, Daniela Sederi, Sarah Fankhauser, Maisha Miles, and Andrea Henley. If I butchered their names, I'm sorry. Thanks also to the preprint authors for posting their manuscripts, many of whom wrote supportive emails in response to students' reviews of their work. Yay! Supportive emails. That makes me happy. Alright. So I think I actually misspoke here. It seems like I'm guessing. Collaborative research, developing biology undergraduate, scientific literacy, and identity through peer review of scientific manuscripts. Okay, I believe that might actually be a book or some other paper that just happens to have a very similar name to this paper. And so I think they were using this other resource to form the curriculum for this paper's experiment. All right, but that is the end of this paper. I'm very much encouraged by this because currently in my classes, they don't tell you how to become a scientist at all. You have to figure it out yourself. And so I'm learning all of this alongside anyone who watches the video. The scientific, in my opinion, the scientific world is very much closed off just by the high barriers of education. You have to have like 26 years of education. I'm exaggerating. Maybe it's closer to, it might be closer to 20 years. And then the extra 6 might depend on how long it takes you to go through college. Because you got 12 years of general ed education, and then you have 4 more years of undergraduate education if you manage to finish it in 4 years. A lot of people don't. A lot of them take 6 years. And so that's already 16 to 18 years of education. Then you have to go on to get a master's or graduate degree, PhD, and that might be another like 4 to 6 years. So that's another 20 years. And then you might have to spend time as a postdoc after you get your graduate degree. So basically, it just takes a really long time to be considered a professional scientist. And so all of that time in education creates a barrier for college students who want to be scientists to join the scientific community. So basically, by teaching students the simple skill of analyzing research, it already encourages them to participate in the scientific community. Anyways, thank you all for joining me on this journey of reading this paper. If you want to see more of this type of content where I'll be reading research articles and trying to break them down and explain it so that it's easier to understand, then please subscribe and ring the bell. If you have any questions about this paper or comments, such as correcting what I said, then you can write it in the comments below and I will respond as best as I can. Alright, but I will be seeing you guys tomorrow on Sunday. Bye!